Hi, I'm Sara Meeks, and I'm here with my friend and colleague Charlotte Stone in her yoga studio in Teaneck, New Jersey, to record a video for you that includes safe movement and exercise for bone health. I'm a physical therapist since 1962, and I've been practicing yoga since 1977. I became a certified Kripalu yoga instructor in 1984, and that's the same year when, as a physical therapist, I saw my first patient with known osteoporosis and an acute compression fracture. Since that time, I've been focusing on movement and exercise for safety and therapeutic intent in bone health. So Charlotte, thanks so much for inviting me here to help you with this video. Would you like to tell the listeners a little something?
Sure. First of all, welcome to Sara Meeks, who has been my yoga teacher and yoga mentor on the issue of osteoporosis and osteopenia for about 10 to 11 years by now. I am a yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and the director of the Stone Center for Yoga and Health in Teaneck, New Jersey. And about 10 or 11 years ago, I became aware that not all yoga could be safe for osteoporosis and osteopenia. So I decided to go back to the drawing board, looked around and found Sara Meeks' training, and took her first seminar, and since then I've never looked back. It has been a joy to be mentored by Sara, to study with her, to assist at her trainings, and I'm really honored that you're here today, and I'm delighted that we get to share some safe yoga for bone strength today. So join us.
In this first video, Charlotte is going to demonstrate a series of movements that have been yoga inspired or adapted from my yoga practice for safety and therapeutic intent, specifically meant to strengthen the back. So Charlotte first is going to show a safe way to get down onto the mat. She will step forward with one foot into a lunge position, keeping her upper body in alignment. Coming down on one knee, on the back knee, again, keeping the back as long as possible, and then coming down on the second knee. To bring her hands to the floor, she first does a movement called a hip hinge by placing her hands in the hip crease. Notice as she hinges, her body comes closer to the floor, so she has to reach less to reach the floor with her hands. The whole idea here is to minimize rounding of the back, which has been known to increase injury in people with low bone mass. Reach for the floor with one hand, followed by the other hand into the hands and knees position. And then lengthening out through the upper body, walking the hands forward, coming directly down onto the abdomen, which is the safest way to transfer to the floor. She's going to extend out her right arm, or the arm towards which she's going to roll. She's going to roll over onto her back, and in this way she ends up on her mat. We start in the supine anatomical position, or lying on the back. So the first thing that Charlotte is going to do is she's going to place her feet on the floor by bending her hips and her knees one at a time to place the feet flat on the floor on what I call the foot triangle of support. So she rocks her weight back onto her heels, runs the weight up along the outer border of the foot, and then across the ball of the foot. She should be able to move her toes. So she's standing on the bones of her feet. Bending the hips and the knees in this way relieves the pull of the muscles of the hips and the knees on the back. The idea of this position is relaxation and realignment of the back. The palms are going to be turned upward. So Charlotte will turn her hands upward, slide her arms out to shoulder level, and then bring her hands back down along the sides of the body towards her hips, actually coming all the way down to the hips, and then slide her hands back out to a position about halfway between the hips and the shoulders. She turns the palms completely upward so that the shoulders are slightly externally rotated and the forearms are what is called supinated or turned up. This positioning is called the anatomical position, and it is the position where we are stretching out the muscles and the structures on the front of the chest. She'll reach up with one hand and feel the curve in her neck. We want to have a slight arch in the cervical spine, so her chin will be slightly upward, but not too much up in the air. We want to have her with a curve in her neck, so that the neck is in neutral position. This is called modified Shavasana, or the decompression exercise position. It is the position of least compression of the spine and the single best exercise for most back pain. I usually have people lie in this position for 5 to 15 minutes a day, allowing the back to relax. No television, no reading, no texting, no tweeting, no cats, no dogs, no kids. Just lying on the back and allowing the back to relax. And during that time, you can do some specific breathing to aid in the relaxation. And of course, you could have a tape playing with some kind of meditation so that you could relax. The first exercise that we will do beyond that is called the wings of the collarbone shoulder press. So Charlotte is going to reach up and feel her collarbones, which begin in the central part of the chest and then go out toward the shoulder. So she will trace her collarbones so that she knows where they are. And then bring her hands back into the decompression exercise position. She'll take a breath in, and as she breathes out, she lengthens the collarbones and then presses the backs of the shoulders down toward the floor. She'll hold this for 2 to 3 and up to 6 seconds as she gains endurance. As she relaxes, she breathes in and repeats this movement about 3 to 5 times. More if she wants to, but not necessary. So it's a breath out with the effort and a breath in with the relaxation. One must be careful not to press the hands or the elbows into the floor. If you press the hands or the elbows, then the shoulders tend to come forward. So you want to make sure that you're lengthening out through the collarbones, which leads directly into a press of the shoulders down toward the floor. This simple yet profound movement brings into play a group of muscles that runs all the way from your tailbone up to the base of the skull, known as the erector spinae or postural or backstrap muscles. It will also cause the shoulder blades to come closer to the spine, but we don't want to try to bring the shoulder blades closer to the spine, just allowing it to happen naturally. The intent here is to target the back extensors. It's been shown in research that strengthening this muscle group reduces the risk of compression fracture in people with low bone mass. So she will do this collarbone lengthener, shoulder press 3 to 5 times, and then move on to the next exercise, which is called the head press. She wants to reach up with one hand and make sure that she still has an arch in her cervical spine. That's the neutral position of the neck. We should not try to flatten the neck in this exercise. She takes a breath in, and as she breathes out, she feels the weight of her head on the floor, and she increases the weight of her head on the floor. Again, she will hold this for 2 to 3 and up to 6 seconds, depending upon her endurance. One should not hold the breath while you do an isometric exercise. So she breathes out as she presses down, she breathes in on the relaxation, and then out with the effort once again. And she'll repeat this movement 3 to 5 times, more if she likes to, but it's not really necessary. next movement is called the leg lengthener. So what Charlotte will do is to straighten one leg down to the floor. She wants to make sure that her leg is in alignment with her hip and that she's not rolled out into external or outward rotation. One of the visual images I like particularly is to imagine that you have a paintbrush extending up toward the ceiling in between the second and third toes, and you keep that paintbrush pointing straight up. The kneecap is also pointing straight up toward the ceiling. Charlotte will place her left hand, since she's beginning with her left leg, on the crest of the pelvis on the side of her body. She takes a breath in, and as she breathes out, she adjusts her foot by stretching out through the heel and then lengthens that leg by pulling the pelvis away from the ribs on the breath out. She will hold that for 2 to 3 seconds, release, she'll breathe in, and repeat that movement 1 time. So lengthening on the breath out and relaxing as you breathe in. 2 repetitions, and then she'll rebend the hip and the knee to bring the foot back on the foot triangle support, and she will lengthen the other leg down to the floor. Again, making sure that the leg is in alignment, adjusting the position of the foot, placing her hand on the pelvis. Now, sometimes what happens in this exercise, particularly if people have tightness in the hip flexors, which is most of the people that I see, that what they will do is they will actually, as they're lengthening the right leg, they'll actually hike up the left hip in order to get the right leg to move. So, to counteract that, I'm going to ask Charlotte to tighten through the lower core, tighten her abdominals and her pelvic floor. I also have a visual image that I use called the soda can. What you do is envision your body as a soda can from your hips up to your shoulders, and you tighten up the whole soda can. That gets your abdominals, get your pelvic floor, some of those stabilizing muscles of your trunk. She takes a breath in, and as she breathes out, she lengthens this leg. So it's lengthen, 2, 3, and relax. This exercise stretches the gastrocnemius, the calf muscle, the posterior or behind the knee, the front of the hip, and also the lower back. Taking another breath in and lengthening, holding, 2, 3, and release, and then sliding that foot up to bend the hip and the knee again. This is an exercise if you have had, or if you are a yoga teacher watching this video, for example, and you're working with other people, and this person has had a recent compression fracture. The leg lengthener is an exercise that might cause pain in the back, and you would not want to do this exercise. You would want to do the next exercise instead. It's called the leg press. So Charlotte's going to go ahead and straighten one leg down to the floor again making sure it's in alignment. She extends out through the heel. She takes a breath, and then I want her to imagine that she's lying somewhere on a nice, warm, sunny beach. And she's going to press her entire leg down into the floor as if she could make an indentation in the sand that looks just like her entire leg. She holds for 2 to 3 and up to 6 seconds, and then relaxes and breathes in. She breathes in and then readjusts the foot and press the entire leg down once again. Press, hold, and release. And then slide that foot back into position on the foot triangle and straighten the other leg down to the floor. Notice that I do not instruct her in right leg or left leg. I allow her to pick which one she wants to begin with first. So she adjusts the position of this foot, Make sure her leg is in alignment and the paintbrush is pointing straight up toward the ceiling. Take a breath in and press this leg, the entire leg. This exercise targets some of the larger muscle groups of the body, the quadriceps on the front of the thigh, the gluteus maximus on the back of the hips, and the lower back extensors. And then she releases as she breathes in. And one more time she presses down, 2, 3, relax, and hold that leg right where it is and straighten the other leg down next to it. So your legs are parallel to each other. You adjust the position of your feet, making sure that paintbrush is extending straight up toward the ceiling. Take a breath in and press both legs down into the floor. Press, 2, 3, and relax. To add a little bit to that exercise, you can make sure that you have your legs nice and close together. And before you do the press, you squeeze your legs together at hip level, high up near the groin. You squeeze with they're called your adductor muscles, and then you press the legs. And this adds a little bit more to the exercise itself. And releasing that movement and bringing the legs back with the hips and the knees bent, the feet flat. Now, if this position is not enough support and you have back pain or you're unable to support your legs, sometimes I'll see people where they bring the knees together in order to support one leg with the other, but we want each leg to stand alone. Or if you have back pain, you could also put your legs up on your sofa in what's called the 90-90 position for more relaxation of the hips and the knees. And once again, this is the single best exercise for most back pain. If you and all your friends would take 5 to 15 minutes each day and lie down on the firmest surface. It doesn't have to be on the floor. It could be on your bed if you're unable to get to the floor, and just allow your back to relax and to realign. Your back would feel a lot better.